Okay, so looking at the quiz, um, the ones that you guys had the most trouble with, most of you got number 4 wrong, which you guys know that the point of the quiz is to just see what you guys got the first time through and what you need some more information on, both for you and for me to get that information. And since I didn't teach this, I don't know what you got. So when we talk this question, I actually thought about taking out of the quiz because it's kind of a weird thing with exponents. When we talk about things being the proper language when you say something is to say, for example, if you look at the question 3 where it's got 7 and then the little 3 up here. Oops. The proper way to say this is 7 to exponent 3. Nobody ever says that. We always say that as 7 to the power of 3. That's just the way it's always said. But that's kind of wrong because the whole thing, 7, we say 7 to the power of 3 is what we say. This whole thing is called a power. All right? This number is the exponent. And this number is the base. Okay? We say 7 to the power of 3 because that's just how we say it. And but when we talk about something as a power of 3, that is 3 to the something. So the correct answer for this one is something as a power of 3 is this. Okay? So a power of 3 means that the base is 3. Okay? Can everybody, does that make sense? Does that?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, if you've just joined us, I'm going to ask that you keep your mic muted and you use the if you go to the participants tab, you'll see you can say yes, no, go slower, go faster. There's some other things there. That's how I'd like you to respond when I ask those questions while I'm recording this for students that can't make it this morning. All right. So when we say something is a power of 3, we're talking about the base. All right. So for that one, it has to be B. That's the only one that has 3 as a base. And you'll notice that because this test would have been done without a calculator, so you don't actually know which one is 2,187, but it doesn't matter because that's the only one that's got a base of 3. Okay. In the matching, this is just vocabulary. You just have to learn this. Oh, do you want me to give you the answers for the other ones too? Because I didn't put that on yours. So repeated multiplication, the area of a square is going to be something squared, so it's 2 times 2. That's going to have a side length of 2, so that's B. This is 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 is 1 to the 4, which is B. This one is 7 cubed is 7 times 7 is C. This one is D. Matching represents the number of times you multiply a number by itself. That is the exponent. Okay, that's what tells us. That's what tells us when to what number we're multiplying, how many times we're multiplying it by itself. Haiti, I will get to that in a moment. Okay. Used to represent 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. I didn't count those properly as 2 to the 4. That is actually supposed to be C. That is what we call exponential form, but I did accept D as well because 2 to the 4 is a power, so I consider that to be okay. And 7 refers to an expression such as 5 squared or 2 to the 4. That is supposed to be D, but I also accept C because I consider those to be the name you use is depending on context, and I don't think that's an important distinction. Okay. 8, the number 5 is the base. And the number 2 in 5 squared is the exponent. Okay. Notice that I'm doing all of this with uppercase letters. I always recommend students use uppercase letters on your on multiple choice all the time. Look at this. What if you only saw this one up here? Can you be sure what letter that is? No, because that could be a B or a D, right? And the problems that I usually have is A's and D's. I get A's that look like that and D's that look like that. And that's really hard to tell which is which. Okay. I mean, I know some people do their A's like this, and that's easy to tell. The simplest thing is to use capital letters, because unless it's the only letter on the page, I can tell that that's a B, that I can see that this person is using capital letters, so this has to be a D. Okay? Okay. Right as a power. Now this is where the brackets matter, okay? If your base is a negative number, you have to use brackets. All right, and since what we're multiplying in question 10 is a -1 times -1, our base is -1, so this has to be -1 to the power of 4. All right, because if I multiply out -1 times -1 times -1 times -1, this equals 1, yeah? If I go -1 to the 4, that's -1. All right? Because there's only one negative. Because remember, when we do our gemma, which rules everything we ever do in math, there's no grouping in this, but exponents comes first, which means that the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to apply the exponent to just what it touches. Okay, which is the 1. So it's 1 times 1 times 1 times 1. And then there's the negative. Okay. And for question 11, it's -3 is the base, so it's -3 times -3. That's expanded form. And evaluation, -3 times -3 is +9. Okay? Now, technically, those last two questions, maybe shouldn't be in this quiz. I'm not sure, because they are dealing with the negative things. But if you just follow I left them there for two reasons. One is that if you follow the rule of the exponent is your base times your base times your base times your base, then you have to put brackets in it to keep the base as -1. But also, students get these wrong all the time, so I figured the more times you see it, the better. Okay? Okay, Haiti, did I answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Okay, can we go to quiz? Any other questions on this one? Okay, let's go to the next quiz. 1.2a. And again, I want you to be doing this without a calculator. All the exponents questions that I'm going to give you are going to be without a calculator. Okay, so what is the value of -4 to the 6, and how the heck are you supposed to do that without a calculator? Well, you're supposed to know, well, you would know that 24 equals 4 times 6. So you know it's not 24. You know it's not C. Okay. Excuse me. It's not -24, right? So now the question is -4 to the 6 going to be a positive number or a negative number? So can you guys tell me give me a green check mark. I'm going to clear these. Give me a green check mark if you think it's going to be positive, and a red check mark if you think it's going to be negative. So, or red X. So, oops. So check means it's positive, and the X means it's negative. Okay, can you guys see each other's answers? Oh, thumbs up. Okay, good. Thanks, Sam. Okay, yeah, it's going to be negative because negative 4 to the 6, the exponent only affects what it's touching, and it's only touching the 4. Okay, so it's going to be 4 to the 6, and then there's only one negative. So the whole thing is going to be negative. All right, if I had negative 4 to the 6, that would be positive because there are 6 negatives. Okay, does that make sense? Can you give me a check in, a thumbs up, a smile, a yes, or a... Okay. Thank you very much. All right, next question. Anything to the power of 0 is 1. Okay, so 7 to the 0. Oh, so let me just put the answers in here. So this is A. Anything to the 0 is 1, so this has got to be B. Anything to the 0 is 1, so this has to be D. Anything to the 0 is 1, so this has to be C. I'm going to skip down to question 6. Anything to the power of 0 is 1, so 8 to the power of 0 equals 1, but negative 8 to the power of 0 is negative 1. So that's negative 1, so it's D. Okay, if you're lost, give me an X. If that confused you, give me an X. Okay, cool. Let's look at question 5. This one's got a little bit more thinking in it. I have to look at all of them. So negative 6 to the power of 6. Just a second. Okay. Negative 6 to the power of 6 is going to have, this is going to be negative 6 times 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 negative 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So is that going to be positive or negative? Well, there's an even number of negatives. So if you remember, these negatives are going to make a positive, these negatives are going to make a positive, these negatives are going to make a positive. So this is going to be positive. Because there's an even number of negatives, it's going to be positive. In 2, there's only one negative, right? There's only one negative there, so this is going to end up negative. And this one has actually got 7 negatives because this chunk here is going to be positive because we determined that up here, and then there's one more negative, so this is going to be negative. So the answer is B. Can I get a yes or a no on that, please? Thank you. Okay, next question. Can you do this one now? Can you do it? Why don't you guys just try these 3? I'll just give you a minute. Okay, those 2 we've already done. Question 8 is newer, and this is negative 2 times 2. That's how you write that in expanded form. It's 2 times 2, but there's only one negative. Only the first 2 gets a negative. Okay. Sometimes, and then, oh, sorry, and then to evaluate it, that equals -4. Okay? Sometimes it helps to think of -2 squared as you're going to do the exponent first, right? And it only affects what it's touching. So maybe you want to put brackets around that to make that more clear to yourself. Okay, so now that clearly equals negative, oops, that's not a negative. You could go, so that's -2 times 2. And I would accept that actually as expanded form. I would accept that. Okay. The other thing that sometimes helps is to think of this as -1 times 2 squared. So that's -2 times 2. Either way, it's got to equal -4. Okay? So can I get a yes or a no on that, please? Excellent. Thank you so much. All right. The other thing, just quickly on quiz 3, I'm just going to go to a blank page on this. When we do graphing, I didn't pre-print out this quiz, so I don't have it. But when we do, and we want the coordinates of something, so let me just say there's a point there, and the coordinates of this point is 2, 1. You have to put brackets around it. Okay? That's how we know that we're talking about a coordinate pair and not just a list of numbers. Okay? You can put +2, +1, but at some point those plus signs just become extra clutter, so it's probably better not to. But if that helps you, go right ahead. It's also essential that the x comes first. And one way that a friend of mine showed me is to think of your x and y's like that, so you know which one's which. And then it's alphabetical order. The x always comes first. Okay? Now on this quiz, I didn't mark it wrong. I didn't say it was wrong. I just was checking to see if the numbers were correct as to whether I marked it right or wrong. This is quiz 3.1. But next time, it definitely is wrong if you don't put the brackets in. All right, and then algebra. I've got a quiz for the algebra that I want to go over because a lot of you were not showing your work correctly, and I also want to go over checking your answer because that's something else that you need to be able to do for these algebra questions. Okay, so the process you have to show, and you know what? After this year, you don't have to show it any way you want, anyway in particular, but this year, because this is the year we are teaching you algebra, you have to show me the process. And when I talk to my own kids, both of whom are spectacularly good at math, and I tell them about this, and they've both done math at the university level, and I tell them about students not showing their work, and they both flip out because even at university level math, the students who are strong students still show their work, okay? They still, now maybe not on a simple question like this, but I want you to get in the habit and then you can decide when you're going to skip it. But for now, you need to do it on every question. So for question 1, remember I like to do 2 colors when I'm doing algebra. So 1 shows me what I did. So I'm going to multiply, I want to get rid of the 6.1. So I'm going to multiply the top and the bottom by 6.1. Or sorry, I'm going to multiply the right side by 6.1 and I'm going to multiply the left side by 6.1. Okay, and those cross out. And then I use a different color to show what I have. And what I have now is 15.86 on the right side, and I have n on the left side. So that's my answer. All right. Some of you did rewrite as you put an extra line in here of 6.1 times 2.6 equals n, and that's okay, but not necessary. All right. Okay. For question 2, what you do is you're going to divide this side by 5. But you have to show me that you're dividing the other side by 5 as well. That is going to be so important when the questions get more complicated. You have to show that you do it on both sides. And the answer you get is 4.1 equals K. On question 3, one person, I can't remember who, no, was it this question? Switched things around and didn't show me how they did it. And don't do that, okay? Show me that what you did is you added 10.2 to this side and you added 10.2 to this side, okay? And then if you want to write that on this side you have negative 5.5 plus 10.2 equals A, this is again okay, but not needed. Bracket. What you do need, actually, let me just show you a little thing. What if you wrote it as 10.2 plus negative 5.5 instead? So you got 10.2 minus 5.5. So when you're doing this calculation up here, that makes the calculation simpler. If that doesn't make sense to you, just ignore it. The important thing to have next is my answer, 4.7 equals A. Okay. And then be really careful about your signs. Quite a few people got 19 or 15 point something on this because they just added those two numbers instead of doing one minus the other. Okay, so be careful about that. So let's just do some checking here. How would I check my answer for number 3? Because you should be checking every single question, even if you're not writing it down. Okay, you should be able to get 100% on these because you should be checking your answers. So I've got my left side and my right side. And remember, when you solve an equation, what you're doing is you're finding what does A have to be for this original equation to be true. So I think that A equals 4.7. My left side is negative 5.5. Can't make that any simpler, so I'm going to circle it. My right side is A minus 10.2. I'll replace my A with 4.7 minus 10.2. My calculator tells me that's negative 5.5. That's as simple as that can get. Now I'm going to compare them. They're the same. I'm going to put a check mark. Do you remember? Clear your responses. Do you remember doing that? Okay. There is going to be a quiz where you need to check things. Okay, and on the test you will need to check things. What you should be doing with every question, though, is now I think A equals 4.7. I get my calculator. I know you can't see me waving my hands around here. I'm pretending to hold my calculator. I'm punching numbers in at 4.7 minus 10.2. Does that give me negative 5.5? Yes, it does. Okay. If my answer was 15.7 and I went 15.7 minus 10.2, that gets me positive 5.5. I've made a mistake. Okay. Okay, I think we did all of the kinds of questions on this page. Let's go to the next page. Because some of you, quite a few of you had trouble on this. A lot of you did really well on the first page and not so well on the second page. The second page, is harder because it's got fractions. But the process is the same. What's bothering the variable? Well, the 2 is bothering the variable. So I'm going to add 2 to that side, and I'm going to add 2 to that side. Those cancel out. And what I have now is x equals 13 over 4 plus, I need to add my 2, but I want to write it with the denominator of 4, so that becomes 8 over 4. So then x equals 21 over 4. Okay? And I don't need you to reduce it. For question, if you've got a question, you're going to shout at me, right? Are you going to give me a message? For here, what I want to get rid of is this negative 1/2, so I'm going to add 1/2. And those cancel, and I'm going to add 1/2 to that side. So I have negative 13 over 10 plus 1/2, which is 5 over 10. and that equals x. So this is negative 13 minus 5, or sorry, plus 5 over 10 equals x. So that's negative 8 over 10 equals x, which I then have to reduce is negative 4 over 5 equals x. Okay? Any questions so far? Okay. One other thing, some of you gave me 5.25 for this, and that's wrong. If your question is done in fractions, your answer has to be in fractions. Okay? You can't give me a decimal answer. You can use a decimal answer to check it, but you can't use that to do it. All right. Question 11. This one caused a lot of trouble. Oops. What I want to get rid of here is the negative 6 over 5. So I'm going to divide this side by negative 6 over 5, which means I'm going to divide this side by negative 6 over 5. These cancel out because I've divided it. Just like if it was 2x and I divided it by 2. So what I have is, on the left side, I have 24 over 5 divided by negative 6 over 5, and that equals x. Please write this out. It's just going to reduce your errors so much. So when we divide fractions, we invert and we change it to a multiply, so it becomes times negative 5 over 6 equals x. And then I can do my cross-reducing thing like that. I do suggest that when you cross-reduce and you leave this little negative sign hanging there, you do something to highlight it, okay, so that you don't lose it. And then I can cross-reduce again. 24 divided by 6 is 4, and 6 divided by 6 is 1. So my answer is going to be just negative 4 equals x. And then go ahead and check that with your calculator, okay, if you want to. For question 12, there are a couple of ways that you can do this. The official algebra way of doing it is going to be what's bothering the r, the 12. How do I get rid of it? I multiply both sides by 12. So I'm going to multiply this side by 12. Those cancel. And I'm going to multiply this side by 12. So I get r equals negative 12 over 30. So I've just floated my negative sign up because it's easier to see than when it's beside my my fraction line. And now I need to reduce this, so I can divide both of them by 3. Actually, divide them both by 6. Let's just do that. Divide that by 6, top and bottom, divide that by 6, and I get r equals negative 2 over 5. All right. The other way you could do this one, which is fine, because with algebra, as long as you show your work and you get the right answer, it's okay. I can cross multiply these. Oops. So I get 30r equals negative 12. And then I'm going to divide that by 30 and divide that by 30. So I get r equals negative 12 over 30. So I'm back to the same place. So either of those is fine. Okay? Okay, that's all I have for you right now. Any questions for me? Okay, was this helpful? I should only ask one question at a time. Okay, was this helpful? Let's do that one. If you have a question, you can type it for me. If this was helpful, please let me know. And if you, I think that probably the best thing going forward is going to be for me to record the videos ahead of time. Although this worked quite well. Why don't you guys all send me a message and let me know whether you would like me to do live lessons or recorded lessons. Okay, you can just, actually, do you want to just tell me now? Just say live or recorded. You can type it for me. Or don't care. That's a fine, legitimate answer as well. Yeah, recorded lessons don't have the interaction, so I don't get to check in on you. So I want to be clear that if I switch to live lessons, I will record them and post them as well. So it's not then you can do it on your own time. You can go back and look at it again. You can pause it, whatever works for you. So okay, well I'll see how the schedule shakes up. It's actually easier for me to do live ones because then I don't have to edit them. And not that I've been doing a lot of editing, but I've been doing a little bit. So okay, if that's it, if nobody has any questions for me, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna pop over to the Workplace 9 bound crew. But if you've got questions, let me know and we'll check in with you. Okay? Oh, the picture went away. All right. Have a great day, everybody. Bye.